What's up, boys? I'm back. I haven't seen you guys in a while, but I'm gonna tell you why, and I'm gonna just update you on what's been going on in my life. So, I got a job a little while ago. Yeah, crazy. After the video that I made saying that jobs were essentially not a good long-term plan. I still stand by that, but I have realized that some of my opinions about jobs, about things like that, came from the fact that I had like an insurmountable amount of fear that I wasn't willing to feel when it came to spending my time doing something that I was not interested in or whatever. That idea literally just made me feel depressed thinking about it. Like, I have this limited amount of time on this earth, with this life, and I have to spend a lot of it doing something that I hate, doing something that doesn't fulfill me, doing something just because it's necessary. That's something that I found very scary, but a lot of it was like triggered fear and not fear that doesn't come from like a true place. So I decided to get a job. I was like, I can see that I'm sitting around being a one-tropreneur and not actually getting shit done. I'm not going out and selling my photography services. I'm not going out and making consistent YouTube videos, for example. So I have to do something. So I was like, okay, I'll get a job. And I'll get a sales job so that it'll help me with sales, right? It'll improve that skill and I'll be able to take that. And if I want to sell my photography, I can do that better. If I want to, talk to you guys and get a message across more effectively, then I can do that too. So overall, it just seemed like a good idea. And honestly, even looking back at the fact that I'm no longer doing that, I still think it was a good idea. And I can feel that I let go of a lot of stuff through going there and getting triggered as all hell. So overall, it's been a good thing, but I quit. Now, the reason I quit is because I realized that essentially the only two benefits that the job had was money, right? The ability to make a high amount of money in a relatively short amount of time. So maybe like 1 or 2 years of experience would have put me above average in terms of earnings and stuff when compared to like most people in South Africa anyway. So that was benefit number one. Benefit number two was the fact that I was going to get very triggered. It was going to be very difficult. And that was the main reason that I wanted to do it, is because I knew that it would force me to let go of a lot of stuff. And it did. It really did. Okay, so I did get triggered a lot. I didn't make much money because I left before I would have gone to the point where I was starting to actually earn commission and not just a training salary. I sat down and I really had a lot of reflection to do, right? I started doing this YouTube channel. I had one video that was very successful and that gave me a lot of motivation. But at the same time, I realized I was starting to hit my personal ceiling of success. I was starting to become more successful than my self-image would allow me to be. And so, I found a bunch of reasons to not carry on with the YouTube as soon as I was starting to do well. And I've started to realize that's one of the main problems that I've had personally. And I'm going to make a video about how to get around these problems, by the way, because I've had to learn to do that for myself, obviously. The issue was that my self-image allows like a certain amount of success, but nothing past that. And as soon as you start to get past that, there's like an extreme pull mentally to like drag you back down to where you think you should be. And the biggest way that you overcome this, right? And I'm going to make a proper video about this, but essentially TLDR, right? It's visualizations, right? To help you remold your self-image. And then there's experiences in real life that contradict the current self-image that you hold. And that's the two ways that you can kind of change your mindset and your self-image, right? Is literally by contradicting what you currently have. But one very important thing about that is that you can't replace old ideas about yourself or about things that you want to do, whatever it is. You can't replace old ideas with a vacuum, because I see a lot of people trying to do that, right? You have to replace old ideas with new ideas, never a vacuum, right? Because the vacuum will seek to be filled, and the easiest way for the vacuum to be filled after you create it is simply to just pull the old idea back into the space where the vacuum is now. And you want a new idea to be there, right? You don't want just a vacuum. You can't like sit and just have a problem or have a situation where your mind is just not made up about what you should do, right? So you have to, instead of trying to just create a vacuum, it's like, for example, I've seen this with when people try to change their mindsets to really help them along with addiction and things like that, right? Where it's like your actual goal, right, is to realize freedom from the addiction. It's not to stop wanting your phone, right? Even though that is literally what it is. The goal, right, is to realize freedom rather than to focus on resisting constraint, right? And it sounds like the same thing, but it's really, really not. Because one is playing not to lose and one is playing to win, right? If you play not to lose, you don't make it very far, because as soon as you stop losing, right, you've reached your goal, right? But the goal is not to not lose, the goal is to win. The goal in a boxing match is not to play defense for the entire time, right? You can't win the fight without throwing some punches, right? You need to go on the offensive with your mindset as well. So don't try and replace old ideas that you want to change with vacuums. Replace them with new ideas. So within the job that I was working, I had a manager that I had real problems with. Now, I'm not going to go in depth about what exactly it was, right? But it's the kind of thing that most people would get fired for if their actual boss knew about it, right? So I had like what I would consider like some pretty good reasons to be upset about certain things. But at the same time, I could tell that there's like an extreme amount of like people pleasing still within my psyche. Like I still deep down see conflict avoidance as the best strategy for keeping myself safe, which doesn't match reality, right? Conflict avoidance isn't the best way to have relationships. It isn't the best way to like, it just leads to like poisonous levels of resentment. But I still have a lot of letting go to do around these kinds of situations and stuff. So it was very difficult for me at the time. I had to call in, and complain about this manager so that I wouldn't be training with him the next week, right? So I had trained with him 1 week. It sucked. And then I was going to be sent back to him again for the next week, and I didn't want to. I really didn't want to. So I decided that basically no matter what, I had to be put somewhere else, right? So because it was time sensitive, I couldn't exactly sit down and just write an email or even just send a WhatsApp, because a lot of the people that I would be trying to WhatsApp or trying to email are very busy all the time, right? So they wouldn't see it probably until like a couple days after. So I knew I had to call. And I hate calling people. I really struggle. Like even just calling my friends. I prefer to just send WhatsApp messages or voice notes. I feel very awkward when I call people, right? And that's a lot of triggeredness that obviously you should let go of, right? And that I am letting go of. And that this whole experience helped me let go of a lot. Like I'm way less scared of calling people now than I was before this whole thing. But basically, I had to do two things that I really didn't want to do, right? Which is complain about someone and do it on an actual call and not just on like a WhatsApp, where I can almost like hide and wait for the other person's reaction and then like carefully curate my own and pick the perfect words and whatever. So I literally got my mom to sit in my room with me for like 20 minutes while I just sat there, like experiencing so much like anxiety, just trying to press the call button, right? And just by doing that for like 20 minutes, I had let go of enough of the anxiety that eventually I was like, screw it, man, I'm just going to call, right? And then I did, and no answer. So all that anticipation for nothing, basically. But I was feeling pretty screwed because I had no way to actually make sure that I wasn't going to get sent there for this training, right? Back to the same manager that I didn't want to go back to. And so the next day, I had to just try again. I had to just call again, which was almost more difficult because the time pressure was even more significant because this was the last day. This was Sunday, right? And if I didn't get it sorted today, then Monday I was going to drive out very early in the morning, right, to the same place. So I had to sort it that Sunday, and I wanted to like sit down and do it, but I did procrastinate on it because I knew it was just going to be scary. And eventually, my mom was going to just leave home and like do a bunch of stuff, do a bunch of shopping, or like go out for supper or whatever. And I was like, if I don't call before that, like I'm just not gonna get around to it, right? So I did just call, right? And thank goodness, right? The person that I talked to, it's like in my mind I had made up all these stories about, as soon as they answer, as soon as I complain about someone or whatever, I'm gonna get shouted at. They're gonna make it my fault. They're not gonna listen to me. Maybe they buddies with this other guy, and so then I'm gonna get in trouble maybe for even complaining. But obviously all of that is like people pleaser talking, right? That's not how it's actually going to go, and that's obviously not how it actually went, right? So I got that out the way, and the next week I ended up quitting just because there was a lot of things that I knew for a fact that I could go somewhere else and it would just be better, right? So I did end up quitting the next week, but my main goal of getting really triggered did happen, at least. So yeah, basically I've been doing that, and now that I did quit, I've come back with a renewed sense of like urgency and desire to actually come and do this YouTube channel and to make it work. Because I think to myself, it's like, do I want to like sit down and make a YouTube video? It's like, no, maybe I don't, right? But do I want to go back to doing what I was doing? Hell no. So I'm going to make this work. I have to, right? So yeah, I'm very excited. I've had what this book calls your FTE, which is basically once you have decided properly that you're going to make your business work, you're going to make your thing happen, right? You're not going to quit when it gets difficult. You've decided for a fact that this is going to happen no matter what. I'm going to put everything in, right? And I finally had that for YouTube. So you guys are going to be seeing a lot more of me, right? And I'm doing a lot better even than I was probably when I made my last video. So I'm excited. I'm excited for you guys because I know I have some bangers coming, right? And I'm excited for me because I know that this shit is going to take off, all right? So yeah. Anyway, love you, bunch of skank bastards, and I'll see you soon, all right?